The standard approach to writing an essay is staring at a blank page until you magically receive an idea. But in reality, you don't need to rely on magic. There is a way to control your creativity. There is in fact a formula for creativity that almost all great thinkers apply, like Einstein, Darwin, and Da Vinci. Everyone needs to be creative from time to time, but most don't understand what makes something creative. Knowing why is necessary to understand how to be creative. So let me ask you, is this creative? Is this? Or this? None of these are creative, but for different reasons. A knockoff Mona Lisa isn't creative because it isn't new. Shoe umbrellas aren't considered creative because they aren't valuable. And a phone stand isn't creative because it's an obvious invention. For something to be creative, it has to be new, non-obvious, and valuable. Now that we know what creativity means, how do we become creative at will? The ingredients necessary for creativity fall apart into 4 levels. Each of these levels is vital for understanding the full picture. Every creative process involves 2 steps, be it painting or engineering. An engineer might come up with different designs and then pick the best one. Or a painter might make a couple of sketches before picking the most aesthetic one. The first step is always synthesizing new ideas and then evaluating them. The evaluation is the easy part. It's the synthesis that gets people stuck. So how do we synthesize new ideas efficiently? In order to synthesize new ideas, there are 2 ways of thinking. To understand both these ways, consider this analogy. 2 men are stranded in the middle of the desert without any water. In desperation, they decide to dig for water. The first man decides to start digging immediately. He hopelessly digs his hole as deep as he can. But after a while, he just can't keep digging anymore. The second man has a different approach. First, he takes a look around. After a couple of minutes, he finds the lowest point in the desert and he starts digging. Which man do you think will find water first? The first kind of thinking is like digging your hole deeper. It's the type of thinking used for turning an idea into a sketch or making a model of your invention, and it's called vertical thinking. In order to find the lowest point in the desert and in order to come up with different ideas, we need a different type of thinking. We need lateral thinking. So how do we think laterally? Creative problems always have multiple ways to get to a result. When you're thinking laterally, you're trying out different paths to see which ones will work. This process of trying different paths and hoping for the best gets drastically easier with 2 tools. The first tool is rather obvious. It's knowledge. Being knowledgeable is like having a map of where each path will lead. It'll dramatically speed up your creative process, but knowledge can only take you so far. No one knows everything. There will always be undiscovered paths that lead to whole new results. So it's important to be able to find and recognize these undiscovered paths. That's where the second tool comes in, imagination. Becoming knowledgeable is straightforward, but how do you improve your imagination? There are 2 tricks to improving your imagination. Einstein practiced both of these. The first trick is something best summarized by a quote. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I would spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. The trick is to focus on the problem rather than the solution. By thoroughly understanding what you want to achieve, the right path often just presents itself. But Einstein didn't just focus on solving one problem until he found a solution. When working on his theory of relativity, for example, he was simultaneously studying radiation. Whenever he got stuck, he could just go work on something else. But it wasn't just Einstein. Other notable examples include Charles Darwin and Michael Crichton. This approach of switching projects when you get stuck was named slow motion multitasking by Tim Harford. Slow motion multitasking doesn't just prevent frustration, but it also makes it easier to think outside of the box, since you're constantly going from one box to another. Now that you understand the fundamentals of the creative process and you know how to improve in each aspect, you're ready for the formula for creativity, which was conceived by Ruth Noller, a former professor of creative studies. The formula itself is very simple. It goes as follows. C equals F sub A of K, I, and E. The formula says that improving your knowledge, imagination, and less importantly, your evaluation skills will improve your creativity. Finally, the most important piece of the function is the A, which stands for the main requirement for creativity, which is the positive attitude.